She ruled an empire, captivated a continent, and cloaked herself in a mask of eternal youth. But behind that regal image, something darker was unfolding. A slow death, silent, invisible, and still unexplained. Queen Elizabeth I is remembered as one of history's greatest monarchs. She ushered in the English Renaissance, defeated the Spanish Armada, and ruled for more than 4 decades with brilliance and tenacity. But her death, cloaked in secrecy and strange circumstances, has left historians puzzled for centuries. There was no post-mortem examination, no confirmed cause of death, just silence, and a legacy built on mystery, ritual, and perhaps poison. Elizabeth was born on September 7, 1533, at Greenwich Palace. She was the only surviving child of King Henry VIII and his second wife, Anne Boleyn. Her birth was a disappointment to her father, who longed for a son. When Elizabeth was just 2 years old, her mother was executed on charges of adultery and treason. Most historians now believe these were fabricated. Elizabeth was declared illegitimate and removed from the line of succession. Her early life was marked by isolation, political uncertainty, and survival in a cutthroat royal court. And yet she listened. She watched and she learned. Elizabeth received one of the finest educations of any woman in Europe at the time. She spoke Latin, French, Italian, and Greek. She studied rhetoric, philosophy, and theology. Even in childhood, her mind was sharp, a weapon forged in trauma and ready for the throne. When her half-brother Edward VI died in 1553, and her half-sister Mary I died just 5 years later, Elizabeth, the daughter of a disgraced queen, inherited the crown. She was 25 years old, and the world watched. From the moment she became queen, Elizabeth understood one thing: image was power. She styled herself as Gloriana, the Virgin Queen, untouchable, radiant, divine. In portraits, she appears almost supernatural, pale, adorned in pearls, her expression unreadable. This was deliberate. In an era when female monarchs were rare and often challenged, Elizabeth used symbolism, ritual, and strict control over her appearance to command respect. Every outfit, every accessory, every layer of paint told the same story. I do not age. I do not marry. I do not bleed. But there was one problem. Behind the carefully curated image, time was doing its work, and it left its first mark not through scandal or treason, but through illness. In October 1562, Elizabeth contracted smallpox, one of the deadliest diseases of the time. She was 29 years old, and for a time, it looked like she would die. Miraculously, she survived, but the illness left her face pockmarked and scarred. It was a devastating blow. Appearance in Elizabeth's court was everything. Beauty was seen as proof of nobility and virtue, and now her once clear complexion was damaged beyond repair. So she turned to cosmetics, not as decoration, but as defense. She began using Venetian ceruse, a highly toxic mixture of white lead and vinegar, to mask the scars. It gave her skin a pale, flawless appearance. But this substance was deadly. Repeated exposure to lead causes skin corrosion, neurological damage, fatigue, mood swings, organ failure, and Elizabeth used it daily, heavily. What started as light application became a ritual, a mask. By the final years of her life, eyewitnesses described her face paint as nearly an inch thick. She reportedly had it applied once a week and left it on for days. It wasn't just her face. Her neck, hands, and chest were also painted to maintain the illusion of perfection. The lid seeped into her skin. Her immune system weakened. Her body aged rapidly. But instead of stopping, she added more. To remove the paint, her servants used cleansers that included mercury, another deadly substance, which can cause tremors, memory loss, hallucinations. Elizabeth began to suffer from emotional instability and bouts of deep depression. She grew paranoid, withdrawn. Some say she began to lose touch with reality. But the queen refused to be seen as weak. She stayed the course, no matter the cost. In addition to the white lead, Elizabeth used vermilion lipstick, made from cinnabar, a mineral laced with mercury sulfide. Red lips were considered a symbol of vitality and even magical protection. Some believed lipstick could ward off death. In her final days, Elizabeth was said to layer on more and more of the red pigment, hoping to appear strong even as her body betrayed her. It was said that, at the time of her death, her lips were caked in nearly half an inch of color, but lipstick couldn't stop what was coming. As Elizabeth entered her 60s, her world began to collapse. Her closest friends were gone. Robert Dudley, her lifelong favorite, had died. The Earl of Essex, a young man she had loved and later executed for treason, haunted her dreams. She began to spend long hours alone, in silence, sitting on the floor of her chambers, surrounded by cushions. She refused to lie down, convinced that doing so would bring death. Her servants reported that she sometimes stood for 15 hours straight, propped up by pillows, staring into the distance. She wept often. She spoke of regrets, especially the death of Mary, Queen of Scots. She had nightmares, hallucinations. She feared being seen, and yet each day she insisted on applying her makeup. The mask had become her reality. In March 1603, Queen Elizabeth I collapsed at Richmond Palace. She was weak, silent, and visibly frail. Doctors attempted to treat her, but she refused food and medicine. She spoke rarely, and when she did, her words were cryptic. Her doctors begged her to remove her coronation ring, which had grown into her finger over 44 years. The skin was infected. The pain was immense, but she refused. They planned to cut it off surgically, but before they could, she died. Elizabeth took her final breath on March 24, 1603. She was 69 years old. Her reign had lasted 44 years, nearly half a century. No post-mortem was ever performed. The official cause of death was listed as old age, a catch-all term used when no real explanation existed. But her symptoms paint a different picture. Long-term exposure to lead and mercury, sudden physical and mental decline, refusal to lie down or eat, hallucinations and memory loss, skin lesions, fatigue, and collapse. To modern doctors, this points to chronic heavy metal poisoning, and yet, there are stranger stories still. Her lady-in-waiting, Elizabeth Southwell, claimed that shortly before the Queen's death, a playing card was found nailed to her chair, pierced through the head, a possible curse or warning. Southwell also claimed that after Elizabeth's body was placed in a lead coffin, it became so bloated with noxious vapors that it exploded days later. Was this exaggeration, propaganda, or something more? Southwell later converted to Catholicism, the religion Elizabeth had suppressed, casting doubt on her motives. Still, the stories Elizabeth High left no heir. With her death, the Tudor dynasty ended, and the Stuarts ascended the throne. But her influence never faded. She gave England an age of exploration, culture, and relative peace. Under her rule, the arts flourished. The seeds of empire were planted, and a new identity was born. She became a myth, a symbol, and a riddle. Was she a brilliant strategist who outwitted every man around her? Or a lonely woman slowly dying beneath layers of makeup? Was her death a tragic accident of ignorance, or a consequence of vanity and fear? We may never know for sure. But perhaps, as she intended, her secrets died with her. In life, she wore a crown of power. In death, she wore a mask of mystery. Elizabeth I ruled not just a kingdom, she ruled perception. She crafted an image so powerful, it survived centuries. But behind the pale paint and crimson lips was a woman, human, scarred, and slowly unraveling. And her story still whispers through history, with a question no one can answer. What truly killed the Virgin Queen? Only she knew, and she took it to the grave.